second page. Is this a copy of the complaint from Ms. Smith that you received?
Yes, sir.
All right, and is this part of your IA file relative to case 18-21?
Yes, sir.
Offer this as Exhibit 1. Now, can you summarize what Ms. Smith's complaint was about?
Basically, when I talked to her, she was 8 months pregnant, and she worked 7 days on, 7 days off. Our phone conversation wasn't long. I just asked her, when she got some rest, could she email me her complaint? And her complaint was basically the email that I have in front of me.
Okay, so the email that you have in front of me, was it basically about the incident that we will ultimately see on video here involving Corporal Duffy?
Yes, sir. Assuming so, yes, sir.
Now, moments later, according to the report, they approached the home, which was the trailer, and began to enter the home, at which time they were met at the door by what they referred to as a black female. By this time, Corporal Duffy is on the scene. At that time, was he a sergeant?
Yes, sir.
And was he the supervisor on the scene over Officer Woodard Robinson?
Yes, yes, sir.
Now, when they approached the home, Ms. Smith is there in the home, correct?
She's an interior, correct?
Okay. All right. I think that sets us up for what we're going to look at in just a minute. But I want to get to one thing. There's a portion of that report, third page, where we were just at, second paragraph. Just as I was arriving, Corporal Woodard notified me that I was no longer needed because the patient was being transported to the hospital. Are those the words of Corporal Duffy?
Yes, sir.
Now, when he arrived, where did he say that the ambulance was located?
If my memory serves me correctly, in the driveway of Miss Smith's residence.
All right.
And his report also reflects that. It says, as I arrived, I could see the Acadian ambulance unit back into the driveway of 556 Alice Street.
And then his description, I want to go to his description of his interaction with Ms. Smith. If you would, let's sing the last paragraph there. As we approached the front entrance of the trailer, I pulled open the outer metal doors. Just then, a female, later identified as Makai Smith, opened the interior door from the inside and confronted me. She was visibly angry and began berating me for not knocking and just attempting to come inside. So this is his explanation of the initial interaction between the two of them. Is that correct?
Correct.
And she was very upset. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Very.
And is that apparent on the video that we're going to watch?
Yes, sir.
Now, looking at the last page of this report, page 4, there's a gray line across that says officers, and it's got a date on there. What date did Corporal Duffy write this report, his portion of it?
February 24th of this year.
Now, if you would turn to Exhibit 3, please. As you mentioned, there are 3 body cam videos related to this incident. If you turn past the page that says videos, you'll see some documents that say action on the type right hand.
Yes, sir.
What are these documents?
This is an audit trail of who watched the video involved in this incident.
Now, so if you look at the first, and this goes with the first video, this first audit trail that you see here. It shows that this is from Shane Alexander, is that correct? It shows uploader. kind of in the middle left-hand column. It'd be the first page right after the one that says videos on it.
Yes, sir. Uploader, it says Shane Alexander. It has his
Recorded on
badge.
February 19, 2021,
Yes, recorded on February 19th, 2021.
and uploaded on February 23, 2021.
Correct.
Now, we noted earlier that Corporal Dozier wrote a supplemental report on February 24th. If you would look at the second page of the audit trail, and when you go through the names there in the middle column, when do you see that Corporal Dozier first reviewed this video?
February 24th of this year.
So the same day that the report was written, correct?
Correct.
You know, we're gonna play the video of Officer Alexander. Just to be clear, this is the body camera footage from Officer Alexander, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is when they first came up to the scene.
Yes, sir.
All right, board will allow me to get over here. That's normal, there'll be a muted period before.
Mr. Range, are you gonna play the whole video right now?
Yeah,
I
there's.
was just gonna let Mr.
I was
Range sit
saying,
down.
do the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
You sit down, do 15 minutes per video. Just to note, there are portions where this is muted, but I want to see the whole thing.
That's the best volume you can get. Is that the best volume you can get?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's muted right now,
No, I mean,
but I can turn it up higher than that.
would you?
Mr. Raines, do you have it timestamped as far as when, the reason you're showing this video in this muted portion, I'm assuming the brother is about to instruct him where the trailer is at some point? Do you have a timestamp of when that is?
We will not see the brother do that. I don't want there to be any dispute about what happened before or during, as far as what we have on show.
I got you. You guys fine with them fast forwarding through this to the pertinent points? Yes. Board members, are you okay with that? An officer's allowed to mute their mic when they're talking to the police officers. So that's what's going on here. And if there's no pertinent information here, for time reasons, I'd like to go ahead and move to the stuff that we need to see. Anybody in objection to that? Perfect. They're gonna fast forward through the non-pertinent portions of this video. It's a 15-minute video, and they're gonna show us the portion that they referenced these kids.
Basically what you just said, there's really no communication between them and this time. You see like, right in the video, they're left back, just forward to that, you don't see that part. Thank you, sir.
And this is the fire department personnel right here on scene, and the Acadian ambulance personnel, the brother. And that's it, right?
And this
And
is,
it says,
does this show the two different residences, two different trailers?
I'm sorry?
Does it show the two different trailers?
Well,
No.
one's a trailer,
One is a trailer and one is a house. And the part of the report relates to communication between the officers and the EMS folks. That's partially what this is about, since they are said to have received certain information from the EMS folks. And we wanted to make it clear there was very little communication between them.
about 10 minutes in here, fast forward.
OLL, DRG. Let me know when it's on my next. Move on, wanna move on.
We just watched the first video. If you would turn to, you still at Exhibit 3, turn right past the first yellow page that you will see. That's the action on what showed for the second video, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that also shows it was recorded on February 19th and uploaded on February 23rd.
Yes, sir.
And does the second video of Shane Alexander also show the incident between, does it show and capture the incident involving Brpd and the Smith?
Yes, sir.
If you turn to the second page, was this video also reviewed by Brpd on February 24th?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll play that second video now.
Yes, I said no on the top.
I was told no one was in here. I was certainly not. I was raised to sleep on the couch.
Now, can I help?
My apologies. Yes, I tell you what, we're gonna step out now because we have a gentleman in town who may die, and I wanna see if this is a crime scene. So until that
This
time,
is the first thing, you can talk to my grandmother, y'all not coming here because this is not my house.
see what I'll do. See what I'm doing.
Y'all gonna get out of my bed.
Wow, can you relax and listen? Calm down. Calm down.
Okay.
Come on, come sit down. Come sit down. You not sit down. I don't have shit to do with this. No, but y'all don't have a search warrant, so y'all not going to a damn house. So let me call.
Yes, ma'am.
You're embarrassing.
I'm about to go do it. So, we could have done this a different way, and I would like to explain to you once you calm down.
Well,
I'm not
let
trying-
me get my phone so I can call my grandmother and let her know y'all are searching her home.
We're not searching.
You need to listen to me, okay? Listen to me and listen to me good, okay? You have to understand, we were called down here because a man was down in the home. When we got here, your grandpa, whoever he is to you, he was in that EMS wagon, barely breathing. Because of policy procedures of Veterans Police Department, we have to come and see how the house is doing.
Don't nobody stay here but me and my grandmother. Do y'all need mail? Do you need anything? That's why I said, let me call my grandmother. Don't nobody stay here but me and
You know
her.
what I mean? In this house?
No. I'm in there asleep. All I hear is commotion outside. My brother name is Kevin Smith. I have a sister named Jakelsa Smith. Them are the only people that are kin to me.
So you wanna know the man who just was in the contract?
No. If he's not a young man that's around the age of 18 or 17, that is not no kin to me.
He's 80 years old. And his
No.
brother identified that this was where he lives, because he came to check.
No one
Well,
stays here but my grandmother and I.
Well then, let's talk like this then. So now you can see why we're really confused. The only thing we're after is to see if somebody hurt this man. We don't think that there is, but we have an obligation to check it.
That's how we was
I
doing. You
had
not
no
trying to,
idea.
who's gonna
that
stay
you were in
here?
there. We thought that this place was empty, okay? So there was a misunderstanding there, okay? With that being said, we have to go in there to see if
Where he was
there
staying.
appears to be a crime.
We are the only two people stay here. I am pregnant. Why the hell would I sit up here and lie and say that somebody else stay here?
Well, we don't know that. That's what we're trying to find out, okay? Understand our confusion when they call us to investigate this, and we find you're not supposed to be in here according to the information that we have. You're telling me a whole different story, because you can see why we're confused. This is an honest misunderstanding that we're trying to get to the bottom of, because that's what we have to do. We have an obligation to do that. All right, so
I'm like,
do we have the gentleman's name?
hold on. Yes.
I think right.
Yes, possible. Can you see if you can get in touch with, I think it's Neil White, business gallery? And I know she's transferred right now to BRG. We're trying to verify which home did they, remove that gentleman out of.
Did the ambulance people come here? Nobody's been in here.
I've been sick the whole time.
Where did they pull this man from? Because I was told they pulled him out of his trailer. So okay.
Now, you said, older man,
He's not
that say,
80, yes,
we have an older man stay in that house, we have an older man stay across the street in this home.
Okay. It could be that this is a terrible misunderstanding on our part, and so you'll have my deepest apologies, but understand that when we pulled up, there was three ambulances, 2 ambulances, and a fire truck, and they were pulling off with a man that they said was barely hanging on to his life that they found laying on the floor of this trailer. So that's why I came here thinking that, so let's figure out, they may not pull him out here.
She's gonna get in touch with, the EMS lady, and we're gonna verify with the home. By no means we were trying to be disrespectful to you, it's just
Absolutely.
our policy and procedure, but when you start closing the door on us, then we have to do what we have to do to protect ourselves.
And to protect the crime scene, right, if that's what.
Yeah, and if it's not the house, we really apologize, but this is information we received. So please don't get upset with us, we just had to verify that.
I be taking it every time you want us.
Okay.
Especially with you. Cause you look like you don't have a damn doorbell or something, you have a car sitting out here, do it look like abandoned homes? You have a fire-
We did not say it was abandoned, listen to me.
It
We
was
was
like,
trying.
I don't even want to hear it now.
Okay, all right, okay.
You trying to piss me the fuck off. Okay, I swear to God.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Beard, can you sit down?
I'm good. Appreciate it.
All you, you were not trying to.
What can y'all give me out these goddamn cuffs?
I can't do that right now.
Interrupted my goddamn sleep in my home. That somebody don't even fucking stay here. Sure, yep. I'm gonna try to much better. I saw it out here early.
On the brain.
Kia Smith.
Ms. Smith, I'm Sergeant Deputy with Baton Police Department. I'm the supervisor for this shift and I'm responsible for everything that happened here, okay? What I just found out, since we all arrived here late, and the ambulance was back up here and they were loading him in here, there was a miscommunication given to us from the medical people that they had secured Buck, is what they call him, from inside this trailer, okay? His brother was here, said he had come home and found him unresponsive inside. We took the information believing that he was inside this trailer, and that this trailer was unlocked, and that no one was in here. Hold on, I'm gonna finish explaining to you first. I wanna make sure she listens. That's when you and I met each other. When I pulled on that door, I was waiting on them to come behind me. We didn't expect to find anyone in here. What I just learned is that Mr. Buck lives in that house right there, and we misunderstood, or there was some sort of miscommunication. When I tried to explain it to you, and I thought we had a crime scene inside of your trailer, and you tried to close the door on me, I stopped you and I pulled you out to secure what I believe to be a crime scene until such time as we could secure a search warrant for the residence. Between that moment, a few moments ago, and now, I've now learned what I've learned, and you have my deepest apologies that we were in the wrong place. As I said, as the supervisor of this shift, you plan on the right person, okay? You do have my deepest apologies. This was a severe misunderstanding, and I'm sorry that it happened, but it did happen, and I take responsibility for any complaint you want to make, okay? You got pen, paper in here? I can write my own. One thing I do just want you to know is that this was truly a misunderstanding, and we in no way intended to disrespect you. We were trying to secure a possible crime scene. I'm sorry it worked out the way it did, but the only thing I can do now is offer my sincerest apology. This is my name, Sergeant Brpd. This is my phone number. I work in 2nd District. That's the number 2 crime cases if you wish to call me. Lock the doors, lock.
Sergeant Beard, if you would turn to the, right past the next yellow page. This would reference the third video that we want to watch. Was this also recorded on February 19th
Yes, sir.
and uploaded on February 19th?
Yes, sir.
And uploader was Sergeant Dozier.
Yes, sir.
All right, we look to the second page. Was this video reviewed by Dozier on February 19, 2021?
No, sir.
The second page of the document. Make sure you and I are on the same page here. See in the second entry, entry 13?
Correct. I stand corrected. Yes, I see where he viewed it on February 19th of this year.
All right. And all of these videos are assumed part of your IA file?
Yes, sir.
Okay, watch that third video.
And ambulance back up here. We get in touch with that ambulance people later.
I just talked to, Jennifer. She said they put it in the car, but she can't answer right now, they want to call 3. Because people need,
Okay.
she said as soon as they get to the hospital, I'll find out.
Okay. And we're just gonna hold tight then? That ambulance was backed up here.
Yeah, they were right here. They were right here. The guys are right here. Nah.
Just stay right there. Yes, ma'am. Hey, were you out here a moment ago, ma'am, when the ambulance and everything was here? Well, let me ask you, is he the old gentleman? Where does he live? This house. Okay, not this house. Okay. Okay. Arthur, let me find out. Hold on just a second, man. Hey, what's the gentleman's name in the ambulance? Okay. Well, they transported him to the hospital. There's some sort of medical issue. We're not certain. Okay? Thank you. Okay, ma'am, what is your name, dear? Miss Smith. I'm Sergeant Dozier with Baton Rouge Police Department. I'm the supervisor for this shift and I'm responsible for everything that happened here, okay? What I just found out, since we all arrived here late, and the ambulance was backed up here and they were loading him in here, there was a miscommunication given to us from the medical people that they had secured Buck, is what they call him, from inside this trailer, okay? His brother was here, said he had come home and found him unresponsive inside. We took the information believing that he was inside this trailer, and that this trailer was unlocked, and that no one was in here. Hold on, I'm gonna finish explaining to you first, I wanna make sure she listens. That's when you and I met each other. When I pulled on that door, I was waiting on them to come behind me. We didn't expect to find anyone in here. What I just learned is that Mr. Buck lives in that house right there, and we misunderstood, or there was some sort of miscommunication. When I tried to explain it to you, and I thought we had a crime scene inside of your trailer, and you tried to close the door on me, I stopped you and I pulled you out to secure what I believe to be a crime scene until such time as we could secure a search warrant for the residence. Between that moment a few moments ago and now, I've now learned what I've learned, and you have my deepest apologies that we were in the wrong place. As I said, as the supervisor of this shift, I am 100% responsible for what happened here. I want to give you my name, my badge number, and all my information, so if you wish to file a complaint, you're free to do so, and I want to make sure you have the right information and complain on the right person, okay? You do have my deepest apologies. This was a severe misunderstanding, and I'm sorry that it happened, but it did happen, and I take responsibility for any complaint you want to make, okay? Y'all have a pen. I can write my One thing I do just want you to know is that this was truly a misunderstanding, and we in no way intended to disrespect you. We were trying to secure a possible crime scene. I'm sorry it worked out the way it did, but the only thing I can do now is offer my sincerest apologies. This is my name, Sergeant John Bethier. This is my employee number. I work at 2nd District Supervisor. That's the number 10 Internal Affairs if you wish to call and file a formal complaint on me. Once again, you have my sincerest apologies for an awful misunderstanding. We hate it when this happens, but unfortunately sometimes it does. You know, are there any questions I can answer for you at this time? I apologize, okay? Thank you for your time. Sorry for the inconvenience. All right, let's go check this house. Yeah, this is going to be, this is where Mr. Buck lives. Thank you. Makes sense. Thanks a lot. Right. It was so this is why he was just, the fire guy was explaining these unlivable conditions. Yeah. I guess this is where they came in. I don't see any other entrances. Door's locked. Y'all don't see any other entrances over here. All right. I bet you got about 10 questions about what just happened, huh? But
There was a bag up here.
they might have back there.
Because he was in a bag.
Yeah. He was in a bag?
Well, no, what I'm saying was, they had, you know how, because it be so heavy, they put him in that bag.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
The bag's up here. Put him in that bag and got up the hill, so they were on flat probably to put anywhere and stuff. Hold on.
Mama over here. Mama
And
over
look, so just as a training exercise, let's talk about it for a minute. She's very upset. And can you blame her? No, you can't blame her. Yeah. No, it's okay. You can't blame her for being upset. For all she knows, we're trying to walk into her house. Okay? For all we knew, she was inside of a crime scene that we legitimately thought was a crime scene, right? And by her actions, she made it very clear, very quickly, when she tried to close the door, that she wasn't letting us come in there. If there was any evidence of a crime in there, it could have been tampered with. So we have every right at that point to do whatever we have to do under what's called exigency, emergency circumstances, to secure her, to keep her from tampering with possible evidence that we honestly believe is in there, okay? So we had every right to take her and to detain her and physically detain her because of the way she behaved. In hindsight, do we blame her for acting like that? I'd probably be the same way. But it was a legitimate misunderstanding. We thought that that was where this gentleman was found because of the confusion of the situation. The ambulance was back in here.
And
The
then
gentleman,
he stopped and he pointed over here.
he pointed over
Saying,
here.
don't worry about locking the door.
Don't worry about locking the door.
He always keep it locked. You can
There
just
should
go.
not be anybody in there. Okay? So I understand why she was upset. I don't know if she understands our position, but it happens. So the way we're going to handle this is I'm going to write a detailed supplemental report explaining my actions because I'm the one that took those actions based upon a sincere belief that I had that we may be protecting evidence. Okay? But we have every right in emergency circumstances, what's called exigent circumstances, to secure a scene. And at that point, we were going to go get a search warrant because now she's claiming she lives there, and that's confusing to me because nobody's supposed to live there. She may have an expectation of privacy, and anything we find without a warrant or some other acceptable search warrant requirement will be inadmissible later. That's a lot of information.
I got just
Any questions about that?
so basically, no, because it's like if we're hearing some female or male getting beat to death or screaming for help, like
That-
that not happening.
That would be what's called exigent circumstances. That would give us authorization.
Door is locked.
Yes.
Because you hear someone screaming for help and need help, we are allowed to reinforce entry to go and preserve life.
Preserve life, stop the emergency.
And stop the threat.
And then we would stop and either get consent to search, some other exception to the search warrant requirement, or go get a search warrant. Which is what we were getting ready to do now that she was in it.
De-escalate the problem
Right.
first. And
Right.
then once we de-escalate, then we'll take the next step. But because she did what she did and acted crazy and suspicious, and we was told that she was here, EMS backed up here, and his brother was like, oh, don't worry about it, and he pointed directly over here, and he saw us, when he saw Sarge walk up there, we believe it was over here, so.
Yeah, and it was,
She started acting kind of, you ain't coming in suspicious, that makes you think, oh, she's
wait
trying
a
to
minute,
hide.
no one's supposed to be here.
And she's trying
And
to
she's
hide.
claiming that no one was in this place. Well, she was right, but we didn't know it. But we were acting off of good faith information that we believed we had. So this is an unfortunate situation. She probably isn't gonna complain. If I were her, I would probably complain too. But we're just gonna, the way we get through this is we need to tell the truth about exactly what happened. Because we're human beings, we can make mistakes, but when we make mistakes, we fix them and we admit to them. There's nothing wrong with what we did based upon what we did. Right, Junior?
Yep.
All right.
See?
Thank you.
Joanne, go.
I said Joanne for me. Alright, so that's 556 Alice, the trailer.
He's broken.
It was his.
What's up, please?
He's 551, she's 556. Ouch.
So we discussed the supplemental report of Corporal Duffy. One of the issues in the case was the mistake of the officers as to where Mr. Brady lived. And Corporal Duffy mentions in his report that the ambulance was in Miss Smith's driveway when he arrived. Did he mention in his report the first video that we watched showing the ambulance in the street for about 15 minutes before it turned around in her driveway?
No, he did not record in his report.
And that's the video that he reviewed the same day as he prepared his report, correct?
Correct.
All right. If you would turn to Exhibit 4, please. I'm going to show you a sequence of emails in Exhibit 4. Are these between you and Corporal Duffy?
The first page, yes, sir.
The first page shows an email dated March 16, 2021, and has an attachment entitled IA notification. If you turn to the second page, was this the attachment to that email?
Yes, sir.
Before we go there, for hassling purposes, I will offer and introduce Exhibit 3, which was the video involved in the incident.
Let's mark that as PD Exhibit 3. Ms. Penny, can you mark 1, 2, as well as PD exhibits, so we can differentiate between the two? Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Now, is this email that we just looked at, the first couple of pages here, is this the first notification given to Corporal Duffy of the complaint made by Ms. Smith?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you turn the page, does Corporal Duffy acknowledge receipt of the notification?
Yes, sir.
And that's March 16th, correct?
Correct.
All right, now if you turn the page, then on March 31st, you sent an email with an attachment entitled notification again, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and is the next page that notification, or the attachment, I should say?
Yes, sir.
All right, what was the purpose of this email and letter?
First and foremost, to notify Corporal Dorothy that he would have to give a statement to my office. And the second notification document was to give him days that I'd be available for he and his representative to come to my office and give a statement.
Now, if you turn the page, it's another series of emails between the two of you, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you look at the bottom, was this a response that you received from Corporal Duffy to your email?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that, can you read that 2-paragraph response you received from Corporal Duffy?
I cannot commit to any of these dates and times you provided. As I previously explained, I will let you know when I have secured representation. When that occurs, the person will immediately get in touch with you and notify you of his or her availability. Then a time can be scheduled. In the future, I respectfully request that you do not send me correspondence outside of my normal working days / hours that requires me to immediately respond to you. I'm sure you can understand that.
Right now, in the middle of that page, did you respond to Corporal Duffy?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right, what was your response, sir?
Emails will be sent to you or any other Brpd officer as needed. Whether you read it, open it, or respond is solely up to your discretion. Please keep in mind your departmental email is owned by the city, not the individual that it is assigned to. I'm sure you're aware of that.
All right, and then again, you received a response from Corporal Duffy, is that
Mr.
correct?
Chair, at this point, I'm going to object any further testimony on this line. It's got nothing to do with the notice that we provided with regards to violations of policy. There's no allegation whatsoever that we sent out violated policy and refused by internal affairs or participate in an investigation, so, I'm kind of scratching my head as to relevance.
Well, some of this actually goes to some of the things that were stated later in, by Corporal Dothier and, his response to the department and the previous hearing. I can't really do it without setting it up.
Set it up.
All right.
Where is the letter, the, disciplinary letter in your?
You talking about the previous letter, or you talking about the, his?
Previous letter, please. Is that number 9? Yes.
9, his previous letter. And 16 was the letter.
Reference in there, or I'm sorry, you said that this was in reference to something that he stated.
Well, this whole, the whole notification process, yeah. I mean, like, it's not, we can move on.
I got you. Did Mr. Gauthier contact you in the prescribed 30 days that he's allowed to secure representation?
Yes.
He did. Sustained. Let's move on.
Sorry, you sustain the objection, is that what you?
I still offer all of the emails and, as exhibit 4.
PD number 4, thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman, some of the content on some of those pages I objected to you sustained, so
That's fine.
I would ask that.
We'll take all of it, and the board members can read it if they would like to. I just don't want to waste time going over things that have no relevance.
Now, did that interview subsequently take place?
Yes, sir.
All right, you would turn to exhibit 6. Can you explain what this document is to the board?
This is a response to resistive behavior form. Basically, whenever you have physical contact with a citizen, it's self-explanatory. You just fill out the form and submit it with your report.
Was this report completed by Corporal Dothier regarding his interaction with Ms. Smith?
Yes, sir.
On the right-hand side of the page, it indicates that Lieutenant Clarida approved the form on March 23, 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of when it was turned in by Corporal Dothier?
Lieutenant Clarida signed off on the 23rd. I think we got it like maybe March 26th or 29th. It was a couple of days after Lieutenant Clarida signed off on it.
And to your knowledge, did he document that the form was completed or submitted in the RA report?
Let me look back. I don't. No, I don't see where it was documented in his narrative.
We'll offer this as exhibit 6.
PD number 6.
Maybe we'll turn to exhibit 7, please. And is this a copy of your summary report 4 case 18-21?
Yes, sir.
And does it also contain a transcript of your interview with Corporal Dothier?
Yes, sir.
Did you prepare that transcript in accordance with the recording that you have of the interview?
Yes, sir.
And what that is exhibit 7?
PD number 7. Thank you.
When you interviewed Corporal Dothier, did you have him sign the guarantee rights form?
Yes, sir, I did.
If you would turn to exhibit 10 for me. This is a copy of the guarantee rights form you had him sign on the day of his interview.
Yes, sir.
That was April 8th of 2021, correct?
Correct.
At the time, there were 3 charges that are on the guarantee rights form, completion and submission of forms, body camera, and conduct unbecoming, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, if you go to, and you're aware of this, but there were additional charges that were on the pre-disciplinary hearing notice, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, now, were those charges, let me ask you this way, are there times when the deputy chiefs or chief add charges to a case after they have reviewed the matter?
Numerous.
All right. And those are placed in the pre-disciplinary hearing notice?
Yes, sir.
Now, in this case, did you add those specific charges yourself?
No, sir. The chief and the deputy chiefs decided to add those possible policy violations.
And regardless, the officer is noticed of those charges in the pre-dis notice and has an opportunity to address those at pre-dis hearing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's the purpose of the pre-disciplinary hearing?
Correct.
Now, was Corporal Dozier present for his hearing?
No, neither was his attorney.
All right, if you will, let's go to exhibit 16. 16. And do you recall that Corporal Dozier provided a response to the complaint in lieu of disappearance at the pre-disciplinary hearing?
Yes, sir.
And you recall that that letter was read into the record by Deputy Chief Daniels at the hearing?
Yes, sir. Correct.
And go to bottom of page 3. Corporal Dozier makes a number of complaints about the manner of your investigation. And I want to get your response to some of those. Let's go to the top of page 4, letter A. All right, the front page of Sergeant Beard's report in this matter lists witnesses in A and review the contents of that report. He also makes no mention of witnesses. In fact, the complaint stated that the body footage camera reveals there were 2 other officers on scene with me during the entire incident. Can you explain why it reads witnesses in A?
I've been in internal affairs for almost 7.5 years, and if you check any of my previous cases, NA is always placed in the witness slot unless there's a third party person, say for instance someone sitting on a porch watching the interaction with one of our officers and a civilian, or if somebody basically non-employed BRPD individuals. I've always written non-applicable in that slot. And as far as the other 2 officers not interviewed, Ms. Smith's complaint was solely on Corporal Dozier. After watching Officer Alexander's body camera and reading Ms. Smith's email complaint, I had no reason to interview Officer Alexander nor Corporal Woodard.
And the fact that you could see that everybody's actions on video, is that a reason you did not interview them?
Correct.
Now, again, was Corporal Dozier the supervisor of Corporal Woodard Robinson at the time?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, other than this complaint here, let's go a little bit. Let's talk about B, and I'll ask you that question next. While Sergeant Beard found it necessary to investigate me for a violation of the body-worn camera policy, despite the report I completed explaining how policy was not violated, he also chose not to investigate another of the officers on the scene, Corporal Woodard, who never activated her camera at all during the incident. This differing standard of review concerns me greatly. So you just said that he was her supervisor. Who typically handles body camera violations? Do supervisors handle those?
Yes, sir. The sergeant of the squad, supervisors.
And he was her supervisor. You said, now to your knowledge, other than the complaint here, did he handle that issue with Corporal Woodard?
I'm not sure.
Let's turn to letter C. And I'll read it and then you can address it. While Sergeant Beard found it necessary to investigate me for a late submission of the response to resisted behavior form I submitted in this case, which had been received prior to my interview and already addressed with the Uniform Patrol Commander, he ignored the exact same possible violation by another officer who coincidentally works on my squad. In fact, on the very day that he notified me that I was under investigation on March 16, 2021, Sergeant Beard had only 4 hours earlier spoken by telephone to Robinson, who also has a pending previous hearing for an accidental discharge of his weapon. Sergeant Beard called Corporal Robinson, told him that he did not receive his response to her assistance behavior form. In that matter, Sergeant Beard was preparing a case file and asked Corporal Robinson to get in touch with his supervisors to ascertain the status of the form. Corporal Robinson called me, and after giving advice, Corporal Robinson was able to produce the document to Sergeant Beard. Sergeant Beard gave me no such opportunity to rectify what was learned to be a simple mistake rather than a violation of policy. That different standard concerns me greatly. Can you, well, first of all, is it accurate that you addressed the absence of this form with Corporal Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to the board why you contacted Corporal Robinson about the form?
Well, so at ongoing investigation, Corporal Robinson discharged his department-issued patrol rifle while on.
Don't get into the details.
Okay.
I'm not asking you to get into details of his case, but can you explain why you contacted?
Yes, a member of the Shooting Review Board asked me to contact Corporal Robinson to remind him to submit responsive resistive behavior form, but come find out it wasn't even needed in his case.
Well, I guess that because it was an accidental discharge case, does that go before the Shooting Review Board?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what rank was the person that contacted you from the Shooting Review Board?
A lieutenant.
And was he over the Shooting Review Board?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did you take his call to you to communicate with Lieutenant Robinson about the form and order?
Yes, sir.
Now, we looked at some emails earlier between the two of you and Corporal Dothier. What's your understanding of how he wants to be contacted by you?
Corporal Dothier made it obvious that he didn't want direct communication with me. He's verbally told me not to call him. He sent several emails stating the same, to contact his attorney whenever my office needed to get in contact with him. He asked me not to contact him on his off time. So pretty much, he just asked me not to contact him.
All right. And at that point, the policy had already been violated by Corporal Dothier. Would that be true?
Yes, sir.
And that said, did he file a complaint against you relative to his concerns about how this investigation was being conducted?
He did.
And is there an ongoing IA case relative to that complaint right now?
Against me? Yes, sir.
Now let's turn the page, because he also alleges you violated the officer's Bill of Rights. Because he says there should have been a recording of an alleged statement by a Corporal Wallace Britton. First, was there a statement taken by you of Wallace Britton?
No, sir.
Was there an interview or an interrogation of him?
No, sir.
Was he a target officer or a witness in this case?
No, sir.
All right. So was he approached, as I mentioned earlier, as an expert witness?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now turn to Exhibit 8, please. Was your request of Corporal Britton handled via email?
Yes, it was.
All right. And is this first page that we see your request of Corporal Britton to review a portion of the video?
Yes, sir.
All right, and is the second page, the responsive email from Corporal Britton regarding his view of the video?
Yes, sir.
And again, there was no further interrogation or no interview of him relative to this incident, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, the last complaint against you was that you failed to allow Corporal Dothier's attorney to offer advice to him or to make statements on the record regarding a question asked during the interview. At some point during the interview, did you give the floor to his attorney and ask him if he had anything? Do you recall that?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. Do you recall that he asked Corporal Dothier a question?
Yes, sir. He asked, had Corporal Dothier clarify some of his previous answers.
Do you recall that Corporal Dothier began asking you questions?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what was he asking you about?
The Tyon Robinson case.
So he was asking you about the details of another internal affairs case, correct?
Correct.
Are you at liberty to discuss ongoing investigations in other IA cases?
No, sir, not at all.
I'm gonna play, a portion of the audio. I'll give you just a minute, I'll pull it up.
First available, initiate. Attorney, Mike, you have anything?
Sergeant, I just wanted to ask you, to make sure you weren't contradicting yourself. You said, in reference to the residence, the place was empty at one point. You empty of belongings, you thought it was empty of people, or what?
Yeah, our impression was that it was supposed to be empty of people. He lived there alone. He was now in an ambulance and he was gone. And no one else was inside the structure.
You aware of anyone else that may or may not have a body camera in this incident?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. And I'm just going off of policy violations, possible policy violations. Am I the only person under investigation for body camera violations? You asked that question, I don't understand. Am I the only person under investigation for having a body camera violations? I'm not able to divulge that information. Also, on the form that is, submission forms, is that because the body counts or the response to resistant behavior was turned in late? Yes. Are you aware of Ty Robinson working for me, working in my squad? I'm trying to help you out anything else. Well,
Yeah,
I want to say on the record.
I want to ask you, and these forms weren't here tonight.
Sure.
Is this a similar form that we were asked about, in terms of you mentioning an officer that works for you, Ty Robinson? He was
Apparently not similar to that.
his name was Lawrence to resistant behavior. And he was received a phone call from Detective Beard that day, courtesy call.
The same day that I was notified I was under investigation, that's right, 4 hours earlier. So I'm just making the point that it seems that, once again, I'm going to.
The time is 07/8/17.
That's what I thought.
Sergeant Beard, when you ended the interview, was there a question that you had left open to which Corporal Dothier was responding?
I'm sorry.
Was there an intent by he or his attorney to make a statement about a question that you asked?
No, sir.
In fact, the statements that Corporal Dothier was trying to make were in response to his own attorney's questions and statements about another IA investigation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, for that previous recording is Exhibit 21.
Thank you. Did you want to offer in the email strings number 8? You haven't done that yet.
Yes.
I have a question on the first one. There's no date at the top. Do you know the date that first email went out?
second page, middle.
Thank you.
What's in there?
Mr. Ivey?
Sorry?
Let's take a 10-minute break, please. Round it up to 1:05.
We all have short recess. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
You met Bucky Lee at that.
Oh, yeah. Bucky's an old partner of mine.
Yeah, I worked front lab for 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
Hired, so I saw it kind of from the inside out. Jody A. and a bunch of these guys.
Well, I wonder what the backstory was on this, he just told me.
I didn't have, we didn't cross paths. Imagine that. Living in politics.
Nothing better.
For all of it, it has done, maybe more like 100 years.
No, I wrote another book about a murder in Liberia back in 2010. Orthodontist murder. Pretty obvious.
So in your oh, okay.
I've been doing it since 11 years.
Wow. That's a little bit different.
Before that, I was just
We'll say that's the story. I know it really.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out something. So you do this for yourself. What do you do this for you? I mean, what do you do? You're a food. Really? What, you sell your stories? Yeah, that's what I do. I've written 2 investigative books. One is about the World Sheriff's movie. Well, what we need to do, we need the money back. I've written a book about a murder in New Iberia 11 years ago where an orthodontist was murdered by a turned out that the wife paid him like $7,000 to kill her husband. She got away with it. Yeah, she survived. And even her dad was a deputy sheriff. He was never investigated as a suspect. She collected 2 weeks for her life. Yeah. Where did you go? Well, I mean, they're books. Most of those are books that I have. In fact, I could do a book in my big city in the parking lot. I'll give you a copy of them. Where is your car? Oh, okay. Well, I'm in a commercial parking lot across the street.
Well, that's how you flip it over.
Okay. Yeah. Well, HuffPost.
Yeah, I can read
I got, now, HuffPost doesn't say it. The publisher does, but the advocate's tied into them. There are other online news services that pay.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a website, but I don't think I have Well, I'm retired. I have retirement income. Yeah. What is that your, is that a weapon? He's an expert in armoring. I've known Lloyd for years. Lloyd Bradley. Okay, what from where? Oh, okay. You started out with wait a minute now, you're supervisor. So get up there, 349. He used the word racist in what context? Ah, wow, they love that. I love that word. Yeah.
Our last book, it's a blue.
You ready, Mr. Chairman? Please. Yeah. Sergeant Beard, you received a telephone complaint from Ms. Patrice Smith on February 22nd, 2021 concerning this incident, correct?
That sounds correct.
Sometime after that, you called Lieutenant Kevin Laprousse on his cell phone, is that correct?
That's correct.
Who is Lieutenant Laprousse in relation to people here today?
Lieutenant Laprousse is a supervisor that is, I think, on the second, well, I'm not saying district, but as far as shift, I think it's on day shift.
He was then Sergeant Duthier's lieutenant, correct?
Correct. Patrice Duplantier Smith, Makai's grandmother, I asked him to give her a call and just speak with her.
Did you ask him to do some PR for the department and
Yes,
handle it?
I did. Those were my exact words.
Okay. On February 24th, well, let me ask you this. When you called him on February 22nd, had you watched the body worn camera footage by that time?
I can't remember.
If the audit of the body worn camera footage shows that you did, do you have any reason to dispute that?
Not at all.
Was the point of your call for to Lieutenant Laprousse for him to handle this matter personally?
When you say personally?
Resolve the complaint himself?
Yes.
Why was it referred to him?
Because when I talked to Ms. Duplantier, her daughter, granddaughter, I'm sorry, works at a refinery. She was 7 days on, 7 days off. I initially asked him to look into it, and my exact words were do some PR, because even though I talked to Ms. Smith and I wanted Lieutenant Laprousse to talk to Ms. Smith, the grandmother, she was real nice, and seemed concerned about her granddaughter. But a couple of days after that, I was actually able to get in contact with Makaya. And at that point, I called Lieutenant LaRouche back, after talking to Makaya. She had a complaint of use of force against Corporal Brpd, and at that point, I called Lieutenant LaRouche back and said, don't worry about it, my officer will be handling it because there's a possible policy violation of a category 3 offense, so my office is gonna look into it.
Call Kevin LaPerouse back and tell him that your office would actually continue the investigation on February 24th.
I can't remember the dates, but it was a couple of days after I initially called him and asked him to look into it.
Two 2680232. Is that your cell phone number?
It's my city cell phone, yes.
February 24th at 1:39, to be specific. Is that when you called Kevin back or called him for the second time?
Yeah, and I can't remember the exact date, but it was a couple of days after the initial phone call.
Okay. Now, also going on at this time, Deputy Chief Daniels received a phone call from a sheriff's office lieutenant, correct?
Correct.
Was he in communication with you about that phone call?
The only thing Deputy Chief Daniels asked me to do was to get in contact with the sheriff's lieutenant.
And at that time, Lieutenant Bell did not know the identity of the offending Baton Rouge police officer, is that correct?
I can't ask for Lieutenant Bell.
Did you contact him?
I did.
Was he able to provide a name?
No, it wasn't.
Did you ask him for a name?
No, I already knew who it was.
Okay, then according to your report on March 3rd, at approximately 1100 hours, that was when you first spoke with Ms. Smith, is that correct?
If it's documented in the report, then it's correct. I can't remember 3 months ago.
Could you look at page 3 of your summary? The first sentence on,
That would be exhibit what?
I'm sorry. Would be our exhibit 5. To the, and it's got page number 3 at the bottom. You may have to flip through some of the preliminary forms. Would you agree that your report reads on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, approximately 1100 hours, I.O. investigating officer spoke with Ms. Smith via Internal Affairs Division office telephone?
Correct.
Okay. So your second call to Kevin came before that. That be correct?
The dates show it on the calendar.
So if you didn't speak with Ms. Smith until after you called Lieutenant LaPerouse back for the second time.
No, I spoke with Ms. Smith. That's the second phone call was because I spoke with Ms. Smith. That was the whole second conversation that I had with Lieutenant LaPerouse. That is why he received the second phone call from me, because I had talked to Ms. Smith.
Is there any reason you have to believe that you're incorrect when you type the date on Wednesday, March 3rd at approximately 1100 hours? Investigating officer spoke with Ms. Smith.
No, if I wrote it, it's correct.
It wasn't that someone from the administration directed you to retract your offer to allow Lieutenant LaPerouse to handle the investigation once the administration found out that Mr. Dauthier was the offending officer, wasn't it?
Incorrect.
Then on, well, go to one of the things that she told you. If you turn to page 4, flip the page over. Ms. Smith on the phone, and I say that because a few days later, she's going to submit a written complaint via your online system. Is that correct?
This is page 4 of my report.
Yeah, I'm not asking anything, I'm not asking you to direct anything to you right there at this point, but you spoke to her on the phone March 3rd, according to your report, correct?
According to my report, correct.
But you will receive a written complaint from her on March 7th through the online reporting system, is that correct?
No, that's incorrect. She typed her complaint via her personal email,
And she emailed it to you?
and she emailed it to me.
Correct. Okay. Now, some of the things that you discussed on the phone, if I can draw your attention to the last sentence of the first paragraph before where it breaks. You state that it should be noted that Ms. Smith stated that during the listed incident, no, in quotation, I think, Brpd officer entered the interior of her residence on scene. She told you that?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Do you have, if we watched the body cam, Ms. Smith and the officers that we seen on body cam were the witnesses present, what is it Mr. Gauthier is alleged to have searched?
I don't understand the question.
Okay. About Ridge Police Department Internal Affairs preliminary form.
The third page of Exhibit 5.
Third page of Exhibit 5. Preliminary form, preliminary meaning something that's done early on, correct? Is that a form? It's a form typically completed at the start of the investigation?
Correct.
This was done like at the start of the investigation?
No, it's actually finished, done at the finishing of the investigation. It has dates that involve the investigation. This form is for me in my office. This is the last form I fill out once I put my case files together.
Okay. We have carrying out orders, and you reference General Order number 209 and number 319. One of those is the warrantless search policy. Excuse me, 319 is the warrantless search policy, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You wrote that on there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. My question is, the statement that she made to you that no Baton Rouge police officer searched her residence, what is it then Sergeant Gauthier is alleged to have searched?
It's not the fact that he didn't enter her residence, the fact that he opened the door. And in my investigation, I look at policies that might fit the criteria, and it's up to the chief and the 4 deputy chiefs to decide if the policy has or has not been violated.
And with regards to the Wallace Britton, do you know where he was at or where he would have been when he viewed the video?
No, I couldn't answer that.
Could he have been in your office watching it with you?
He may have.
Would you have been, so you would have been there?
He didn't watch the whole video. I went to the video and showed him the portion that he needed to fast forward to, so that we didn't watch the entire video together. He came by my office and I gave him file number. I actually pulled up the actual video and gave him 30 seconds of the video and asked him when he had a minute to watch the video in its entirety. So no, he did not watch the full video with me.
What portion did you provide him to watch?
Towards the end when Sergeant Corporal Gauthier, rather, when he made contact with Ms. Smith.
And what was Mr. Britton, well, first of all, why would you pick Mr. Britton to watch this video?
And actually picked him. I actually called the academy, and asked for a DT instructor, and he was the, instructor that actually answered the phone that day.
Okay. And what was, at what point did you send him the email? Was it before or after you spoke to him on the phone?
It would have been after I spoke to him on the phone.
Okay, if I could ask you to turn, it's tab 5. It's the March 10th. The 12th document from the rear. It appears to be an email exchange between you and, is Wallace a sergeant now, or corporal?
Also reference ED exhibit number 8.
Okay, I had it.
In your March email, first off, does that appear to be the email from you to Corporal Britton at the bottom?
Yes.
In that, you state, Corporal Britton, for our conversation after viewing the Axon body camera video footage of 2nd District UP Uniform Patrol Sergeant Dothier and his interaction with one Miss Micaiah Smith on 2/19/21. Will you give me your professional thoughts when it comes to the physical force utilized by Sergeant Dothier in responding to BRPD officers during the listed incidents? Thank you, sir. Now, he responded 2 days later. Does the email up at the top, does that appear to be the response you recall receiving?
Correct.
And in his response to you, he states, after reviewing the Axon body camera footage concerning Sergeant Dothier and his interactions with Miss Micaiah Smith, I saw no violation of policy or training errors. Is that what he stated?
Yes.
Now, his second sentence is kind of puzzling. He also states, however, a response to resistive behavior should have been submitted. How would he have known, based on your prior email to him, that he was, one, whether there was an issue that one was submitted or not? I mean, you don't ask him, you'd agree in your email, you don't ask him to address whether a response to resistive behaviors form should have been submitted, correct?
Correct.
How did he know to do that?
You'd have to ask him, I don't know.
Could that have been part of your conversation that you claimed that you had in your email?
No.
But we would know because, and just for clarity purposes, whatever conversation you had was not recorded by you, correct?
Well, I report conversations that I'm having with an officer that's only being utilized as assistant.
My question to you is, we don't know because you did not record the conversation, correct?
No, I didn't secretly record the conversation like you recorded my conversation.
At any point during this investigation, were you reporting to the deputy chief about your findings and your feelings about this case?
No, sir.
At any point in this investigation, did you decide that this matter had no merit, and then accountability form should be issued?
No.
testified earlier, but to be clear, on March 16th, you did call Tyon Robinson around noon to ask him about why a response of resistive behavior form in a separate case that he should have completed, correct?
Correct.
So on that day and that time, you believe one needed to be submitted, correct?
No, I was asked by the president of the shooting review board to remind Corporal Robinson about the form.
Did you have a discussion with that member of the shooting review board about your belief that one should not have been submitted?
No, I did not.
Did you begin an investigation once you realized one had not been submitted?
Corporal Robinson's actually discharge was actually my case, so I actually responded to the scene. So at some point, I may have called him and said, fill one out, or may not have. But before I made a final decision, again, I was asked by lieutenant of the shooting, he's president, and also lieutenant of the shooting review board, just to remind Corporal Robinson about the form.
But these responsive resistive behavior forms, they're not filled out only in instances, well, let me back up. So you mean to tell me that a response to resistive behavior form is only to be filled out if someone's directed to by internal affairs, or is it, let me finish, or is it the individual officer's responsibility to know when they're to be filled out?
It's the supervisor's responsibility. And if you're a senior, seasoned officer, most officers realize the need to fill one out or the need not to fill one out, but the supervisor, sergeant, up to the captain, lieutenant, if they deem that the incident requires one, at that point, then I'm sure the supervisor would say, hey, you fill the form out.
Okay, then on March 16th at about 4:30 that afternoon, you notified Sergeant Dothier by email that he was under investigation for, among other things, failure to submit responsive resistive behavior form, correct?
Whatever the date is, the email, correct?
Did you offer him an opportunity to rectify did you offer Sergeant Dothier at any point the opportunity to rectify either the untimely or failure to submit the response to resistive behavior form as you did, Mr. Robinson?
Two answers for that. First answer is Sergeant Dothier was the supervisor at that time. Why would I call another supervisor to remind him to have a subordinate fill out the form? The second part of it, and my answer is Sergeant Dothier has made it apparent that he doesn't want any communication with me without one of you.
And your testimony was he did that via email, correct?
Ask that again.
With regards to what Sergeant Dothier's wishes were in regards to communicating to him, he did that through email, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go to that. I believe it's tab 5. It's email dated Tuesday, March 16th. At 4:44 p.m. I believe it's also part of your internal affairs file. Were you able to find it, sir?
Yes.
Okay, beginning then at 4:44 p.m., the only thing he states in that email is that he's received this notification, he will contact you once he's secured representation. Your response was that you understood, correct?
Correct.
Then if I can direct you to the April 5th email, which is actually a few pages in front of that March 16th email. I apologize for that. Up the top, it's an email dated April 5th. Actually, the conversation begins on March 31st. You send him an email with an attachment on internal affairs letterhead specifying what dates and times you would be available to have internal affairs interview, correct?
Correct.
And on that department letterhead, the attachment, you stated upon receiving this notification via email, respond acknowledging that you have received the email with a reply to obeard@brla.gov, correct?
Correct.
Now, when it comes to internal affairs investigations, in terms of your contact with an employee, especially with regards to conduct of an investigation of the employee, your orders to the employee are as if they come from the chief, correct?
Correct. Well, no, I mean, ask that question again?
The fact that my question is, when you're investigating a Baton Rouge Police Department employee, and you give the employee directions, such as, upon receiving this notification via email, respond acknowledging that you received the email with a reply to obeard@brla.gov, those are orders that basically come from the chief, or understood to, correct?
Well, I work directly with the chief, but as a supervisor in internal affairs, I email or give someone notification, that's coming solely for me.
Doesn't General Order 112 state that you have the authority of the chief of police in conducting your investigation?
Yes, but I didn't act as the chief. I act solely as a supervisor in our office.
If you flip over, and I believe it's already been admitted in evidence previously, on March 31st, John responded to you, and think of what's relevant here for what we're talking about right now, that the only thing he told you was, in the future, I respectfully request that you not send me correspondence outside of my normal working days, hours, that requires me to immediately respond to you. I'm sure you can understand that, correct? Does that appear to be the email that he sent?
My email never mentioned anything about being required to immediately respond. My email simply says, respond upon receiving it, but no, I didn't say anything on the lines of as soon as you open this. Brpd opened that email on his own time.
Okay.
He could not open it, he could wait until he came back to work the previous day or whenever his work schedule.
Mr. Chairman,
schedule work was.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Did you? No. Mr. Chairman, has this, the Internal Affairs Division attachment from the March 31st email, has that been admitted in? I believe it has. Okay. But, Mr. Beard, you will agree that it does state, upon receiving this notification via email, respond acknowledging that you have received the email with a reply to your email, correct?
Again, Sergeant Dothe responded with, in the future, I respectfully request that you not send me correspondence outside of my normal days that requires me to immediately respond. Nowhere in my email that I mentioned the word immediately. I don't know his work schedule, but if he was off from work, he didn't have to open up that email until he came back to work the prior day.
Okay, I got you. So outside of that statement with regards to communications, what other email is there where he told you do not contact him except through his attorney?
Oh, this was the first, and this was pretty good indication on his desire to communicate with me. This is the first email.
His first one, where's another one that says don't contact me except through my lawyer?
That would be when he was being, Jill Kraft was his attorney at the time when he sent an email saying, don't contact him. I've had this ongoing situation with Corporal Dothe from day one. So no, it was actually emails that he sent asking me not to contact him, to contact, Gerald Craft, and Gerald Craft was representing him.
Now, if I can ask you to turn and stay in tab 5. I'm looking for the Garrity form. It's immediately after the transcript. The last page of the transcript being enumerated page 19.
I agree.
Would you agree that there were no Class 3 violations listed on that Garrity form, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us why not?
When I submit my case findings to the chief and the 4 deputy chiefs, it's a process. They have the final say. They can add policy violations or remove policy violations. So obviously, at some point, chief and the 4 deputy chiefs, well, not let me say the chiefs, removed itself from anything dealing with this case, but the 4 deputy chiefs decided to add whatever they decided to add. That's not uncommon practice. They can add or remove possible policy violations.
As far as the process that you followed, after you interviewed Sergeant Dothier, what other steps in the investigation did you take?
Everything that I've done associated with my investigation is in my case findings. I can't tell you I made a phone call or looked at this report. Everything that I included, well, outlined everything that I did.
Did you attempt to reach out to Acadian Ambulance?
No, sir.
During your investigation, did you interview Janelle Woodward?
No, sir.
You are aware she was at the scene, correct?
Correct.
You are aware she's an employee of the Baton Rouge Police Department, correct?
Correct.
What about Officer Shane Alexander?
No, he was in the interview.
Okay. He was an employee of the Baton Rouge Police Department, remains that such today, correct?
Correct.
You're aware he was on scene, correct?
Yes, I was able to see everything from his body camera.
Well, one of the interesting things is I'm not sure that's true. You never observed Mr. Brady's brother indicate where Arthur Brady lived on that camera, did you?
That was Ms. Smith's complaint.
Okay, but
Everything I needed to see, I saw from Officer Alexander's body camera. As far as going to the wrong house, that was not part of my investigation. My investigation was solely him not submitting a required form in a timely manner, him not having his body camera on. I kind of becoming an officer, and at some point, 4 deputy chiefs decided to amend this case and add 2 other policy violations.
so if you observed other policy violations by Baton Rouge police officers on those videos, you would have done nothing about them?
His Officer Alexander's video highlighted just about the entire interaction between Corporal Brpd, Corporal Robinson, and himself. I have discretion when it comes to conducting an interview. I don't have discretion when it comes to investigating policy violations, but I have discretion when it comes to conducting the interview. Why would I interview Corporal Robinson or Corporal Alexander when Ms. Smith's complaint basically piggybacked off of what I saw on Officer Alexander's video? I'm sure your client has had cases where he has had several officers where you want to go back and look, he didn't interview every officer that was on scene either.
What was Lieutenant Bell able to tell you?
That an associate asked for advice pertaining to, her granddaughter.
So that would have been the first person you spoke with in relation to this investigation, correct?
The grandmother.
Did you learn anything new as far as based upon the video and what you've found so far? Did you learn anything new by interviewing John Dofier?
What, ask me that again?
Did you learn anything new that you invest? Okay, by the time that you invested, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not going to tell you what happened. By the time you sat down and interviewed John Dofier, you had reviewed the body cam footage multiple times, correct?
Correct.
Spoken to the grandmother?
Correct.
Spoken to the complainant?
Correct.
Did you learn anything new? In other words, that you already knew? Did you learn anything on top of that from your interview with John Dofier?
If I did, or if I didn't, it should be documented in my case file.
Now, with regards to her written statement to you, where's it at? No, where's it at? It's in tab 5. At the conclusion of the transcript, and I believe apparently you ran this, or someone ran Miss Smith's criminal history, and I put her picture in the IA file.
That would have been me.
Okay, but yeah, I was just trying to reference where, I'm trying to direct you to the email she sent you.
I had
6 lines down, the complainant states that one of the Baton Rouge police officers, maybe it was Sergeant Dofier, stated, he says that he thought the home looked abandoned. Did you see that? Did you hear that anywhere? Did you hear Sergeant Dofier make that statement on the video?
I can't recall.
And then if you'll go down 3 lines, so then he was trying to step his way into our home. Did you ever see Sergeant Dofier attempt to enter her home? Once she appeared at the door, obviously.
This email is solely Ms. Smith's feelings and emotions about what occurred, so I can't answer that.
Okay, but my question, she doesn't say she felt that he thought, he stated that he thought the home looked abandoned. You made an earlier statement that the body-worn camera footage completely corroborated the statement that was made to you by the complainant, and that was one of the reasons why you didn't speak to other officers on the scene. Correct?
Not correct. The body camera footage backed up what she sent me in this email that I have in front of me.
Okay, well then, let me go back and ask that question again. During the body cam footage, did Sergeant Duffy ever make the statement that he thought the home looked abandoned?
I can't recall.
Okay. Go down 3 lines, so then he was trying to step his way into our home. Did you see Sergeant Duffy attempt to step his way into our home?
He opened the door, but as far as, I mean, she even told me that none of the BRP officers on scene entered her home, so I don't know why that's the issue.
Okay. At any point, did you see her bent over the railings outside of her home on her porch?
Yes.
At any point, did you see the neighbors pull up and ask them what was going on The sergeant tells the neighbor, she referred, this is the very last three sentences on her statement. He, presuming that Sergeant Dothier, tells her, and she tells him the exact same thing, that author does not stay in our home. Did you see the neighbor pull up in the video to address Ms. Smith and the three officers on the porch while they were speaking?
Those might have been referring to the fact that once Corporal Dote figured out he was at the wrong house, he walked across the street to the right house, and the neighbor at that point had a conversation about Mr. Brady with Corporal Dote.
So the point being is the body cam footage doesn't exactly corroborate what her statement is, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Did you ever attempt to contact Mr. Brady's brother?
There was no way for me to contact him. Corporal Dote didn't get an address, phone number, so no, there was no way for me to contact Mr. Brady's brother. But again, that has nothing to do with Ms. Smith's complaint.
Okay. I was just asking if you had attempted to contact Mr. Brady, that's it. Do you know what happened to Mr. Brady?
No, sir.
Now, you were in the council chambers when the body-worn camera footage was played by Mr. Raines, correct?
Correct.
And we saw three separate tracks, correct?
Correct.
Two of those tracks were from Shane Alexander, correct?
Correct.
One of those tracks was from Sergeant Dothier, correct?
Correct.
Where was Officer Woodard's body-worn camera footage?
During that interaction with Ms. Smith, her body camera was not activated on the day and time while she was interacting with Ms. Smith.
Did you check to see if she had shot any body-worn camera footage from her entire shift that day?
No, I didn't, but I also made a point to check and see if she had a prior body-worn camera violation in her internal affairs history, which she didn't. So with that being said, Corporal Dote, as her sergeant, on that day and time, should have addressed that.
Okay. How many prior body-worn camera violations does Sergeant Dothier have?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Why was that important for Ms. Woodard? In other words, what's the significance of I have one or I don't have a prior body-worn camera violation?
Significance of it is that she already had a prior violation, then that would have been addressed by my office. Being that she doesn't have any in her history, that meant that Corporal Dote should have addressed that. And as far as watching her video, before that, I never had a reason to go back and watch her video. She wasn't under investigation, Corporal Dote was.
Wouldn't the acts that he did that day be captured, wouldn't they have been captured on her video just like they were Shane Alexander's?
It could have been captured on your client as well if he would have turned his on the whole time.
Okay, but my question was, wouldn't that his actions also have been captured on Ms. Woodard's body-worn camera as well, since she was present?
That has nothing to do with Ms. Smith's.
Answer the question.
Can you ask me again?
You'd agree Ms. Woodard was on scene, correct?
Correct.
That there's a high likelihood that Sergeant Dothier's actions or failures to act would have been captured on her body-worn camera video, correct? Since she was there.
If she would have had it activated, correct.
Okay. But you had, through your investigation, you ascertained she did not have it on.
Sergeant Lass Wilson, she is over the Exxon body camera department division. I asked her to do an audit, and I got an audit, and I think it was included in my case findings or in an email form that she did not have it on. And to answer the question, yes, if she would have had it on, it would have showed whatever he did or
Did you provide, as part of your IA file, Sergeant Dothier's IA history, IA officer history, a documented all of that?
It should be in case findings.
Okay, so you had access to whether or not Sergeant Dothier had a prior body worn camera violation, correct? You had access to that information.
Correct.
So why wasn't that portion of this referred to Lieutenant Laperouse?
Because as a supervisor, the administration expects supervisors to be held to a higher standard.
Okay, but doesn't your body worn camera policy specifically state that the maximum penalty for a first offense body worn camera violation is a conference worksheet with their immediate supervisor?
Well, again, if your client would have came to the previous, you could ask that question, you could ask the court deputy chiefs why it was the same. I can't answer that.
I'm asking about your knowledge of policy, sir.
Ask the question again.
Does that policy state, the one specific to body worn camera footage, that a first offense, the maximum penalty is a conference worksheet with the offending officer's supervisor? Isn't that correct?
That's correct. And as well, once I finished my findings, the four deputy chiefs have the power or the authority rather to remove or add violations. So again, you have to ask one of the four deputy chiefs why it was the same.
Now, when you send your report up, initially it goes to the Internal Affairs Commander, correct?
Correct.
And then it goes to the deputy chiefs?
Correct.
Okay. Can I ask you, remain in, it's about 4 or 5 pages into tab 5. Excuse me, the 3rd page. The title BRPD Internal Affairs Preliminary Form.
I have.
If you go about, I guess, a third of the way down under complaint, number 1, use of force, correct?
Correct.
Out next to that, at some point, was the written word unfounded, correct?
Correct.
What changed?
The fact that the chief, he recludes himself from incident, this case, but the fact that the four deputy chiefs basically trumped me, they have the authority to say what's sustained, what's not sustained. I initially wrote unfounded after reviewing Corporal Britton's suggestions, and prior to turning my case in, I went back and I removed unfounded because it's not up to me to decide what's sustained and what's not sustained.
Why did you put it there to begin with? What was your reasoning?
Going off of Corporal Wallace Britton's suggestion, he said that he didn't see where excessive force was used, simply going off of his suggestion.
Do you know of any other use of force, the defensive tactics instructor or use of force expert that was consulted that contradicted Corporal Britton?
I hadn't consulted anyone other than Corporal Britton.
Anyone other than you conduct their own investigation in this matter?
No, sir.
Just to clarify, Mr. Ali, it's been whited out. Number 1, use of force, there's a line, but it kind of looks like it's whited out.
How was the word unfounded removed, Sergeant Beard?
I whited it out with, of course, white out strip tape. This was prior to even being turned in to the deputy chiefs. This is before this case even left my office. No one suggested that I white it out. No one asked me to white it out. This was, this is a copy of the actual sheet. The actual sheet is in color, but this was, I whited this out prior to even going to, the chief or the deputy chiefs.
Why did it out prior to this going to the chief or the deputy
Prior
chief?
to my case findings going to the chief.
How did you know to remove it then? If you whited it out prior to it going to the chiefs or the deputy chiefs?
Because again, this is the last sheet that I personally filed during my cases. And after contemplating, after, reviewing it in my own mind, I decided it's not up to me to say found it or unfound it. It's up to the chief or the deputy chiefs to non-sustain, sustain, remove, or add, policy violations.
I'm confused. I thought you testified that since they had the right to overrule you, and if they did overrule you, that was why you removed it, not out of some sense you had that you shouldn't be making those kind of determinations.
Well, that was the sense that I had, not making those determinations.
I see. On that same document, witnesses, there are none listed, is that correct?
Correct.
And typically, whose name would go on there, Sergeant?
For me, personally, in my office, I would write, a third-party person, someone not, employed by Brpd.
What form or how would you identify if it was a BRPD witness? Where would their name appear?
In one of those slots, it says officers.
But there's only one name on there, correct?
Say it again?
But there's only one name on there, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha. In the case file you submitted to the administration, you gave no indication that John Doe had continued to make statements or answer my questions on the recording that you made that day, correct?
Repeat that?
And the reports that your IA file, the reports that you submitted to the administration, initially to Sergeant Angelos, and then it would forward on to the deputy chiefs, correct?
Correct.
You gave no indication in any of those documents that John Doe had continued to make statements or answer my questions on the record, but you failed to transcribe those statements he was making, correct?
Those statements that your client were making had nothing to do with this case. And again, if you and your client would have showed up at previous, that would have been the platform to discuss what he was trying to put on the record.
So is that no? His statements do not appear in the transcript, would that be correct?
Correct.
At any time did you ask either of us prior to shutting off the recording if we had anything else to put on the record?
I did. You clarified some answers that Corporal Dope gave, and if my memory serves me correctly, you even made a few statements.
Okay. Did either of Mr. Duffy or myself indicate on that audio that we were finished?
Corporal Dope indicated by standing up and walking out the room saying, I knew that something on the lines of when he went back to work. He stood up, made that statement, and started hitting for the days. So at that point, no, he didn't. And like I said, the statements that he wanted on record, that wasn't the platform to do that. He was trying to go on record with an ongoing investigation that had clearly nothing to do with him.
you were aware that, I believe in documents that we provided you and that made it into some exhibits earlier, that there was an email exchange between Lieutenant Clara and John Dothier about the dilatory submission of the response to resisted behavior on form, correct?
Correct.
Lieutenant, the content of Lieutenant Clare's email indicated he was satisfied with Sergeant's response?
Well, if you look close at that email, correct me if I'm wrong, there's another conversation before that email. That's not the full conversation, but maybe they had a conversation in person or phone conversation, but I'm not an expert on emails, but if you look at it, I think that email is like not a full conversation, but as far as receiving that email, yes, I received the email that Lieutenant Clara said that he was fine with the excuse that Corporal Dothier provided him with.
Were you aware about this time that the Uniform Patrol Office was having widespread issues with having those response to resistant behaviors turned in?
No, I was not made aware of that.
I'm going to ask you to turn to 24. I believe the attachment or the content of the email is that, well, it's actually an attachment. If you flip over one more to the initial email from Kenneth W. Martin, that's who that email purports to be from, correct?
Yes.
Who is Kenneth Wayne Martin?
He is the Uniform Patrol Commander. He's a captain.
Okay. And was he so employed back on February 19th of this year?
Yes.
Now, and this email was sent out to several people on March 24th, 2021, just before 10 a.m. in the morning, correct?
Correct.
Now, obviously I'm going to ask you about every one of those people are, but if perusing these names, who are these people this is addressed to?
Supervisors in Uniform Patrol.
Okay. If you could, and if you've never seen it, I don't think I can go any further, at least not with you, Sergeant, but could you, let me ask you, if you could skim through, is your name on here?
No.
All these people appear to be strictly Uniform Patrol supervisors?
Correct.
Could you flip over and look at the attachment and see if you've ever seen the attachment before?
No, I've never seen this attachment.
Well, let me ask you about this time, February, March, April, May, or earlier. Has your office been inundated with investigations as to failure to timely submit response to resistant behavior forms?
I'd have to be in my office to actually see if we have a copy of this, but I don't personally have a copy of this.
Okay, but my question is, this time frame, around this time frame, has your office been flooded with investigations over officers failing to timely submit response to resisted behavior forms?
I personally have not, I'd have to ask the guys in the office if they have had issues with, prior to this or after this. I'd have to ask each individual person that works for me if they have had issues getting these response to resistant behaviors in a timely manner or not.
What is the policy requirement as to when that form is supposed to be submitted?
I don't know the general order number right offhand, but it reads that all supporting documents to a case should be turned in within, well, at the end of the shift or if you get permission from, your immediate supervisor within 48 hours.
Would you agree that your investigation of Sergeant Dothier was limited to completion, submission of required forms, conduct unbecoming, body cam violation, and use of force?
The initial policies that you just read, they were a part of my investigation. But as far as the ones that were added, you have to ask the chief, deputy chief, that question.
Okay, but, okay, it was a part of, what did I fail to mention? It's part of it, it almost seems like I'm leaving something out. So aside from completion of submission of required forms, body camera violation, and conduct unbecoming, what else were you investigating?
Initially, the 3 policy violations that were listed, but your client was given a copy of his notice of ruling, which was highlighted or outlined the other policies that were added to the case file.
Okay. But they were just the first 3 that you were looking into, correct?
Correct.
And that if you had reason to believe he had violated the arrest policy, you would have interviewed him about the actions he took regarding potential violations of the arrest policy, correct?
If I personally would have, ask me that question again?
Sir, how long have you been in internal affairs?
7.5 years.
You don't just rely on what a complainant tells you potential violations are. You conduct your own investigation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So at the time that we ended the interview at your office, the interview of Mr. Dothier, were you investigating a violation of the arrest general order?
Again, when we ended our interview in the Gary Rights form that Corporal Dothier signed, there were 3 policy violations that I was assigned to investigate. Now, as far as the other 2 that were added, again, the senior command staff can add or remove possible policy violations that they're, whenever they decide they need to. And like I said, your client was given a copy of his notice of ruling where 3, the 2 category 3 policy violations were added. And again, if you and your client would have came to the pre-disciplinary hearing, that would have been, I guess, your opportunity to get the answer you're trying to get out of me.
Okay, but the answer I'm trying to get out of you is, and I think you've answered it, but is your answer no, that you were not investigating a violation of the arrest general order by Sergeant Dothier?
No.
Warrantless searches?
No.
Now, use of force. That means the police department still goes by the force continuum, correct?
No, we've switched over to a new,
Vanguard?
yes.
Okay. A soft, empty hand, forgive me, where I'm at, we have. Handcuffing is considered a use of force, correct?
Correct.
It's considered what's called soft, empty hand control, correct?
Correct.
So, Corporal Britton opined on that, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Smith was not given a summons that day, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Smith was not booked into jail that day, correct?
Correct.
Now, you and then Sergeant Dothier, you all did the same academy, correct?
Correct.
At one point, you all were cool, correct?
Correct.
But not anymore.
When you were secretly recording me, I think that was very distasteful and sneaky. But when you asked me that, I told you I never had a problem with Corporal Dothier. Yes, we were classmates and friends, but for some odd reason, became disgruntled. Corporal Dothier has requested that the chief of police be interviewed. He's asked that Chief Myron Daniels be interviewed. Now, I'm the third person in administration that he's requesting to be interviewed.
He has it out for the administration, according to you, correct?
Correct. That's my personal opinion.
And you work for,
And I work for the administration.
You never had a problem with him until he left out of the Office of Internal Affairs, correct?
Correct.
He's always rude, correct?
Correct.
And whether or not to give a police officer a courtesy call about a form, they made the late.
That's an answer is not relevant. I mean, the questions in this case are whether or not he violated policy. We're getting into things that are far, far afield from that.
Well, specifically, we have pled disparate treatment. So it most certainly is relevant.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Mr. Rowdy, I think you've already proved that.
You said you proved something. He's certainly arguing, but I mean, to hear you say he's proved something, tells me you've made a finding.
Again, I think your point's good.
Where am I allowed to pick up that? But that's the,
Let's pick it up where at? Let's move on with Mr. Beard.
well, that's where we left off, and apparently that's the problem, though. But, okay, I get it. You made the statement that Sergeant Dothier has made a complaint against you in Internal Affairs, correct?
Correct.
All right. Have you been interviewed by Internal Affairs yet?
Correct.
Were you offered to listen to a audio tape during that interview?
Object again, what's the relevance of that to this case?
This is an ongoing investigation in another case. We can't get into the details of another case, details of that ongoing investigation.
Show me the statements that show the bias on the part of this witness, but show me the privilege, a rule of evidence that says because something is part of an ongoing internal affairs investigation, it's entitled to be suppressed or excluded from evidence. Now, there may be, I know the department personally has made arguments about whether or not those records are public as part of an administrative investigation, but his statements, this has to do with statements he made the day he interviewed my client and whether or not he admits that he made them. It is our belief or our supposition that during the course of being interviewed with regards to how this investigation was conducted, he was allowed an opportunity to listen to statements he made at the conclusion of the interview. And I just want to ask him about that. Were you allowed to listen to it? And my follow-up question was were those your statements that you made that day? And that's it. I'm done.
Overruled, go ahead.
I don't remember where I was at.
If I may put on the record here, if he continues in this vein, we're going to object to his being a representative of Mr. Dotier, because what he is referencing is a tape that he secretly made, and for which he would have to certify before he could make any statements regarding it or questions regarding it. Okay? Because he cannot then be a witness and represent this gentleman before this court.
Did Mr. Beard hear this recording that you referenced?
That's what I'm about to ask him. And I'm not the only
He
one.
filed
Excuse me,
in
Mr. Chairman.
district court where he made that very same allegation.
And the point is, but the only person that can authenticate a recording are the people who were there and have firsthand knowledge of what was actually said. That doesn't just have to be me, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Let me ask you something, Johnny. What was said on the recording? You tell me.
He can't.
Yes, he can. Please tell me, Johnny. What was on the recording that you referenced?
Testify to a recording that he is not authenticated.
He did, and he's trying to authenticate it, right? And they're objecting to it. So I want to hear if it's even relevant.
Because that is how the rules of evidence work, and as well he knows.
Well,
He made a
rules of
recording,
evidence in the
if he wants
district
to
court.
authenticate it, he will have to testify.
No, I won't. I can get him to do it.
He can't authenticate the course, who made the report.
He can identify his statements, he sure can.
He would be disqualified as the counsel in district court.
Because that's right.
What you have on that was, what are you trying to get at? What are you trying to have Mr. Beard authenticate?
That I don't remember calling Tyon. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but that's like, and you're an officer and an attorney, it's discretion. I mean, like you stop somebody and, hey, I'm going to give you a verbal warning. Now, if I called Tyon, I don't remember. If I did, but to be honest, he and I didn't have a relationship like that. He even emailed me and said, hey, don't email me on my off time. So why would I call him? How in the world does that not show some degree of disparity in how employees are being treated?
I fail to see the point of what any of that proves. He is reciting something that he has, through emails shown previously in this very same litigation. Today,
Mr. Beard, do you remember giving a courtesy call to an officer about use of force? Or
he has testified already regarding that call to
Mr.
time.
Hamilton, thank you. I'm asking.
Chairman,
He has testified to that.
Mr. Hamilton, thank you.
Ask
Mr. Beard,
him and
do you recall ever giving a courtesy call to an officer about a use of force?
he testified to the very same thing you said earlier.
There's in your world, over Maruzi, a shooting review board. The president, the lieutenant, called me and asked me to find Tyon Robinson about the use of force for the accidental shooting.
So you call, help him out. I would expect you to do the same thing for me.
I called Tyon and said, hey, we're very determined to use force.
That's what you were trying to get at, Mr. Ivey? The fact that he didn't call Mr. Derby.
The courtesies were extended to other people.
Other people, but not.
Correct.
I don't think that he has testified to that. He has testified to his responding to a superior officer.
Mr. Hamilton, asking questions now. The board's asking questions.
What the man testified.
Mr. Hamilton, the board's asking questions, okay? Hang tight. I think it's understood exactly what Mr. Beard said. I think it's understood that they don't get along. He's not gonna extend that courtesy. Can we move forward? Now, we all know that. Can we move forward with Mr. Beard?
I will object again because he has not in any way testified that he was extending a courtesy to anyone. He has testified that someone called him, a superior officer, and directed him to contact this other gentleman. That is what he has testified to.
Thank you.
Finish with the witness, thank you.
Thank you. Reader.
One last one. You received a call from a superior, that was a lieutenant, right?
Correct.
You said this earlier, he asked you to contact Conroe, correct?
Correct.
And did you take that as an order?
Yes, I did.
Well, you had discretion about that particular issue.
No, I didn't.
You testified earlier about Corporal Doug getting in contact with him, and him telling you not to communicate with him. You talked about those communications happening both verbally.
Excuse me, Mr. Wright, could you either pull the mic toward, I can barely hear you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, just had to turn on. Verbally and in writing, correct? Correct. And the prior email correspondence happened in another case with Corporal Duncan, correct? Correct. So it wouldn't have been in this file because you've had more than one case with him. Correct. And in fact, the emails where y'all were going back and forth, which we offered into evidence at tab 4, indicated he was going to contact his captain and request overtime for reading your email. Is that true? That's true. Now, you were asked about these emails. Now, your email was on, the one asking for the interview was on March 31st. Is that right? Correct. And your proposed interview date was not until April 5, so certainly you do not see that as something that was an emergency or required immediate response. Would that be true? That's true. You were asked about Sergeant Dothier saying the home had been abandoned. He didn't have his camera on the entire time that he was communicating with Ms. Smith, did he? No, he did not. But he did say in the video later on that a fireman told him that the place looked unlivable. True? True. So whether it was abandoned or unlivable, those are fairly similar terms, are they not? Yes, sir. When you have a body-worn camera issue, but other issues with an officer, other charges, if you will, do you typically address the body-worn camera issue along with the other charges? Yes, sir, that's correct. In the white binder, you go to tab 14, last page. The section at the bottom, Roman numeral 14, says discipline. Paragraph A, well, it's talking about the disciplinary matters, and first failure to activate BWC conference worksheet, right? Correct. Now, counsel, when he asked you that, he added something, conference worksheet by your supervisor, but it doesn't specifically say that, does it? No, it doesn't. So if IA has body-worn camera issue along with multiple other charges, there's nothing in policy saying that IA would not address that issue, correct? Correct. Like IA addresses it often. Correct. In the emails between Lieutenant Clarida and Corporal Dothier, Lieutenant Clarida did note the timeliness of submission of this responsive assistance behavior form was important, did you not? Yes, sir. the email that Corporal Duffy's counsel had you look at tab 24 from a UP Commander Martin, that was dated March 24, 2021. You see that?
Yes, sir.
And I believe you said earlier that Lieutenant Berta, who's right under Captain Martin, signed off on Corporal Duffy's resistant behavior form on March 23rd. That was just the day before, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that was over a month after the incident of February 21 involving Ms. Smith and Corporal Duffy.
Correct.
Now, the pre-dis letter to Corporal Duffy listed all of the charges against him, correct? And listed all the policies and violations?
Yes, sir, it did.
And the ones that you did not specifically list when you first did the Garrity rights, these charges are ultimately added by some of the deputy chiefs or whoever. These were things that they saw from the videos, correct?
Correct.
These are readily apparent issues that they saw in the video.
Correct.
And the videos were part of your IA investigation?
Yes, sir.
Part of your IA file?
Yes, sir.
And in your past history as a command staff, both removed and added policy violations when submitting the pre-dis notice?
Yes, sir, it's on practice.
Go ahead.
One point I'd like to make, with, well, I'll make it up to board members. Any board members have a question for Mr. Brpd? Before we release him? Miss, sorry, I don't remember her name, Miss Smith, the complainant, she's in the back.
Yes, she's in there.
Can we take her? Okay. I was gonna ask if we could take her so we can,
Yes, she's the next witness.
Perfect.
We agree.
Thank you.
We need to go there.
Mr. Hill wants to go. Let's take a break. Mr. Hill's going to look for Ms. Smith. We are not going to take a break. We're going to take Ms. Smith over the air We're about to take a break for lunch before I'm gonna need Jack as soon as possible. Attorneys have assured me you can have a mask on. Guys, we're about to take another witness. Would you be quiet for a second, please? And we'll take a break as soon as she's done.
Ms. Smith, you've been sworn already. Could you please give me the full name and address for the record?
Micaiah Smith, and my address, or,
Yes, please.
and 556 Adams Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
And, are you presently employed?
Yes, sir.
And would you inform us as to where you're employed?
Turner, I work as maintenance for Shintech.
Okay, and, were you employed with that company on the afternoon of February 19th of this year?
Yes, sir.
The present hearing concerns an encounter between you and officers of the Baton Rouge Police Department on the,
A murder at my home, which they say Mr. Brady stayed, Mr. Brady doesn't stay with us at all. And I was, asleep on my couch, and I heard him banging at my sliding glass door. So that's what woke me up out of my sleep, to go and confront him and ask what was the problem. And, what was the time was?
had you worked the previous evening before this, afternoon and that occurred?
Yes, sir.
And what was your shift?
My shift, I always work from 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon.
Now, on that particular evening, can you explain what your health condition was during that time?
My health condition, well, I was pregnant, and, as you see in the video, it snatched me out my door.
Okay, now, you said that you had been sick, or rather asleep, when you heard someone pull at the door.
Yes, sir.
Now, had you previously heard anything occurring outside?
No, sir. My TV was on at the time.
Okay, and when you went to answer the door, what did you encounter?
I was confronted with the 3 officers that were at my door.
Now, we could not see, although we did have an opportunity to view the video of that incident of one of the officers. When you opened the door, was the inside of your home visible?
Yes, sir.
Now, was the television visible?
Yes, sir.
So when you opened the door, they could view that there was a television and it was on?
Yes, sir.
Now, you indicated that when you opened the door, you had a conversation, I guess, with the officers at that point, right?
Yes, sir.
And from the video camera, we could see the officer indicated to you that they were going to enter your home, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did they initially, to your understanding, explain why they wanted to enter your home?
Because they said that Mr. Brady had passed in my home, but Mr. Brady doesn't stay in my home.
Now, did you at any point try to explain that this was the wrong address?
Yes, sir, multiple times.
Now, when they pulled you out of the house, you were handcuffed, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And during this procedure to handcuff you, were you physically in any way subject to discomfort?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain how that discomfort was administered?
The one of them said to me because I was pregnant, and he yanked me on my door and then he bent over on my railing when I had announced already that I was pregnant.
Now, at some point, there was, and at that point where your Was it explained to you why the handcuffs were not removed?
He said that he was waiting to see, waiting for a phone call, I guess.
But it was clear that they were at the wrong address.
Yes, sir.
Now, you subsequently had the child that you were pregnant with at that time, correct?
Yes,
How old
sir.
is that child?
My child is 2 months old.
2 months old, okay, so there were no repercussions with respect to the health of the child from this incident, was there?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll take the witness.
Good afternoon, Ms. Smith. Good afternoon, Ms. Smith. I think I just have one question. You stated someone, and I assume it was only the police who were at your door when you came to the door, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All three of them were in uniform?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you testify that one of them informed you that there had been a murder?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you remember who that was?
Mhm.
Okay. And let the record reflect she pointed to Sergeant John Lithia. Nothing further, thank you.
I have it for board members.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
How do you feel about the police? Your attitude towards the police?
Well, it depends on the attitude that they have with me. That's all.
I mean, overall, in general.
Well, I mean, I don't really have a problem with police officers until you come with me with an attitude or just outright disrespectful.
After what happened, and after, let me assume something, actually, I'm not gonna assume. Do you understand why they were at the house?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that it was a mistake?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with how they acted once they realized it was a mistake?
No, sir.
What could they have done, in your opinion, differently after they realized it was a mistake?
In my opinion, they could have just went off from it. From get-go, they could have called someone to check, but instead he pulled me out my house and made the most. So,
I mean, they were still under the assumption that someone had died in that house. I mean, after they realized that
yes,
it was a
sir.
mistake, they were at the absolute wrong house, what could they have done differently, in your opinion?
Well, for one, he could have scoped out the scene to make sure. He could have checked with Emma and someone because my house doesn't look abandoned at all. And that's what they claimed it was. They thought it was.
Let me then explain. They definitely made a mistake. They should not have been in your
I
house.
understand that.
100%. Once they realized, once it was made known to them that they were at the wrong house, what in your opinion, should they have done differently? I mean, we watched the videos,
Well,
we
for
popped
one,
it,
they shouldn't have put me in cuffs. I can say that much.
maybe should have taken you out of cuffs.
Yes.
I got you. So as soon as they realized it wasn't your address, you should have been taken out of cuffs.
Yes, sir.
Other than that, is there anything else that they should have done in your opinion?
Well, I mean, like I said before, they could have called to make sure.
Well, no, I don't disagree with you that a
Yeah.
mistake was made and that they were at the wrong house. We agree with that. I'm just trying to understand what they could have done different in your mind.
They could have did that because obviously if the ambulance came to his address, y'all could have got the address from him. He was never at 556 Avenue Street.
Mr.
Brady.
Brady?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question. Were you afraid when they came to your door?
Yes.
How did it make you feel? I mean, what do you?
I mean, I was kind of upset, but I was like scared at the same time. So I was like, oh, well, what are 3 officers doing at my door? I haven't done anything. So my first thing, I'm like, well, do I have a warrant out or something, anything? When I opened the door, that's when he said that they maybe had a murder at my home.
Do you feel like they were listening to you?
Ma'am?
Did you feel like they were receiving it? You were telling them this was the wrong house?
No. Because it just kept going on and on and on. And I repeated multiple times that you were at the wrong home.
And at the end of it, he apologized and, you know, assured you that he made a mistake and that he apologized. And what could he do? Did you feel like that they meant that he?
No, I didn't feel like it was sincere.
Why not?
Because, for one, how he just across the street, they don't want to hear any of it. You said what?
No, I said, all right, I was just saying, at the end, he showed really, remorse that he made a mistake, and he gave you his information, you know, for you to contact him, and you feel like you didn't receive that because of the way he treated you again, or?
I just didn't feel like the apology was genuine. I mean, anybody can say they're sorry and it doesn't mean. So I don't feel like it was genuine at all.
Thank you so much.
You may leave.
We're gonna go ahead and take a, how long a break? 30-minute break. Be back at, yeah, 3:15.
I was gonna say, we got like a